More details have come out about the teen girl that perpetrated the deadly shooting at the Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin, early this week. Initially, police falsely reported that the shooter was 17 years old, but later correctly identified the deceased shooter as 15-year-old Natalie Rupnow, who went by the nickname Samantha or Sam. She was apparently obsessed with school shooters and the TCC, or True Crime Community, which is a nickname used for the de facto international Columbine fandom. Imagine being a fan of a school shooter. So already that is disastrous. Okay. And by the way, we get this information from her social media presence. Okay. For example, her Tumblr, which she last posted in May of 2024, was filled with content lionizing school shooters. Okay. There was also an alleged online friend of the shooter saying that she had posted about school shooters all the time and had, quote, school shooter leanings. So, look, this young girl, if this is true, would join over the 100 copycat inspired shooters that were inspired by Columbine since 1999. There was also a Twitter account that was believed to belong to her that had posted a series of videos that would tease and glorify school shootings. And this was posted in the days leading up to her own school shooting. So this account was created in December of 2024, and the profile picture actually featured a young man in camo pants and a tactical backpack. Now, why does that matter? Well, that male profile picture was from another Columbine copycat school shooter from Russia who was the same age as Natalie Rupnow. So now there's that, right? But there's more, right? Because this goes into some of the reaction here. Basically, what a lot of far-right accounts on X/Twitter tried to do with that information is to transvestigate her, okay? And say, see, we got another trans shooter, which, no, doesn't seem to be the case at all. More likely that this child is someone who fell down the right-wing neo-Nazi pipeline, okay, and had other friends. Apparently, once again, a lionization of school shooters, all right? Now, there's a neo-Nazi Twitter account, I know, named Nitro, who claimed to be friends with the shooter on Discord, and repeatedly denied the accusations the shooter was a transgender girl, calling her a quote-unquote biological woman. Well, she was a teenager, a child, of 15. So I don't know if that's a biological woman thing is all that correct either. But anyway, that said, that should be taken with a grain of salt because, again, the source is a neo-Nazi. So, but there's a lot of information that is coming out that, you should be wary of and you should not take as gospel. I'm certainly not taking anything, even the stuff that I have here, not 100% sure about it. But so far, from what it seems, fan of school shooters. Okay. Now, that said, her alleged Twitter account posted a link to a Google Doc of her supposed manifesto. Apparently, she forgot to make it public, and so can't really read it. But Nitro claimed to find what he believed to be a part of it shared by the shooter in a Discord group chat. Now, Nitro happens to be in the UK, so if this is actually what he's saying it is, then her message would have been sent about an hour and a half before the shooting. So now, do I want to read that? I read it, and I'm going to put the link in the description, okay, of this video, but I don't want to read it because it's filled with racial slurs and some really disturbing language, okay, and mainly a desire to do violence against men, okay. And so I don't want to read that to you guys if you want to. Again, link in the description. Okay. There's all sorts of again racial slurs and references to somebody called Radfem Hitler. So I mean that right there. I mean, okay, that's very right wing. Okay. Um, so a lot of people came to the conclusion that she is what you would call a femcel or a female incel, which again, somebody that just pretty much wants to do violence against the opposite sex. Okay. And so now Radfem Hitler happens to be referenced to a Twitter influencer by the same name and a handle, Hollow Earth Turf. Okay. Now her content happens to be a mix of trad influenced right wing feminism, advocating traditional gender roles for men and women, and is obviously against transgender people. So Radfem Hitler also apparently supports a purging of men, and in that she includes trans women because of that whole, traditional gender roles type of thing. She does not believe that trans women are women. So obviously, she's not really having a lot of fans on both sides of the political spectrum for the obvious, desires to have men murdered. And also all the other neo-Nazi, racist, horrible stuff that she believes in. So that said, of the few fans she does have, they're conservative radfem women with some trad and occult interests. Okay, so again, not a very big group of people, but still some pretty crazy people. All right. Now that said, definitely someone, getting back to the shooter here, who had some serious issues. Obvious. I think that's super obvious. That said, am I taking Nitro's words, seriously? I'm going to take them with a grain of salt, or not just a grain of salt, a lot of salt. Okay. That said, this Nitro person was the first one to correctly identify and post photos of the shooter, so I guess he knows something. I'm not going to completely discount him, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the things that he is saying turn out to be incorrect, or if some of the other alleged manifestos floating around also happen to be, incorrect or have wrong details. Okay, so again, just putting that out there. That said, if she actually was a neo-Nazi femcel, that's really something you don't see often. All right, and it's very, very different. Look, there's a lot of different purported manifestos floating around, as I mentioned before. For example, there's one that doesn't really mention the anti-men stuff, right? But it does keep the racism and the inspiration of past school shooters in it. So, I mean, there's some racist, white supremacist ideology in there as well. Other accounts release what may have been her writing, which describes a difficult personal family life, some thoughts of self-harm, and of course, admiration for school shooters and white supremacists. I don't know if this is, again, 100% her writing. I don't know. But what I do know is that none of these purported writings have any mention of being transgender. So I guess there's that. And once again, that's the reason that's very important to mention, is that there's a lot of far-right accounts, including libs of TikTok and wokeness, all the usual suspects of pushing hatred towards the transgender community, that have been basically taking this tragedy and trying to push that, right? Saying that this is a transgender terrorist, right? No, apparently it just seems to be the work of a Columbine school shooter fangirl who may or may not be also a neo-Nazi or have neo-Nazi ties or white supremacist ties. Not entirely sure. Okay. Now, I could also say, by the way, that it's a distraction for talking about gun control. That would be possibly true. Why they're pushing the transgender terrorist stuff. But I think it goes further. I think this is part of a concentrated effort to try to erase transgender people from society by demonizing them, by blaming them for violence. 95% of all, shooters, school shooters, mass shooters, are cisgendered men, young cisgendered men. So, that happens to be the major demographic here. About 5% are women, and like less than 1% are transgender or non-binary, LGBTQ, whatever. And so they're definitely trying to push this this falsehood. And the reason I think that they're doing so is they're trying to give people a legitimate reason to hate trans people for simply existing. And so it's very important to come with the facts, as far as we know them, okay, and to really push back against a narrative that never seems to be true. All these supposed, transgender shooters never were. There was one person that attempted to, I think it was a Pulse night club shooter, that attempted to say that they were non-binary, but once again, that really didn't turn out to be true. So, and none of the claims of like, transgender shooter, there was one within the past few years that identified as transgender. The rest, not so much. Okay. Very, very rare, much more rare to have a transgender shooter than even a female shooter. Both pretty rare, but in a country where you have this massive amount of gun violence that happens, specifically school shootings, then yeah, you're gonna get a mix of all sorts of people that are perpetrate it. And so maybe that's where the focus ought to be, is trying to prevent them than to use this tragedy to blame certain outgroups for it. Just a thought. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.